Hi, I'm Kat Kalashian for Live and Invest Overseas. And although Paris gets lots of attention, there's a lot more to France than just its capital city. So today we're going to take a look at some of the top regions in France, especially if you're looking to move. And we'll be looking at a few regions that you've probably never heard of. I, along with about 160,000 other American and Canadian expats, live in France, and you can become one of them. Let's take a look at where most of them like to settle down. So we've got 6 top cities in France. The larger cities, Paris, Lyon, Toulouse, Bordeaux, Nice, and Marseille, are bustling with life, endless picturesque streets to explore, filled with art, music, good food, cafe culture, boutique shopping. In these cities, you won't want for anything, and the infrastructure is top-notch. You won't need a car, for example, if you're living in one of these cities. City life in these places is probably going to mean living in an apartment, which means downsizing a little bit from what you may be used to in North America. And most of these are old buildings. So they're charming architecture from maybe over a century ago. But keep in mind that means that things like elevators aren't necessarily going to be guaranteed. Central heating or cooling are not very common. So if those things are important to you, you need to make sure that your apartment building has them. And when it comes to access to and from North America, as well as the rest of the world, you really can't beat Paris for ease and convenience, with dozens of direct flights all over the world, hundreds actually. But the other major cities are also easily reachable from Paris by train, plane, or car. Montpellier and Marseille are two of the biggest cities on the southern coast, and they enjoy pretty temperate weather year-round. They're on the Mediterranean Sea, and they don't really ever get too cold or snowy or icy. From Montpellier, it's just a quick 3-hour train ride to Barcelona. From Marseille or Nice, another of those cities in the south, you can easily get to Italy or Monaco, for example. Toulouse, known as the Pink City, is a bit northwest of these cities, and it's landlocked, so you don't have the sea, but it's just a few hours to the Spanish border or to the Atlantic Ocean coast or to the Pyrenees for enjoying the mountains. Bordeaux is, of course, famous for its wine, and that's on the Atlantic coast, where it can get a little bit windy year-round. It's not really ever going to get very, very cold, but it does get windy, and that can bring the temperature down a good bit. So and there are certain times of year that you might be bundled. And Lyon, which is on the eastern side of the country, it benefits from being driving distance to Geneva and the Alps and the rest of Europe right there. The southern regions are jaw-droppingly beautiful. The beautiful Côte d'Azur is, of course, very well known. It's a popular retirement destination for many expats. The bright blue waters contrast with the dramatic cliffs here, and there's beautiful old villages perching above the sea on all of these coastlines. Life on the blue coast is quite glamorous, with Monaco right next to it, casinos a stone's throw away, private yachts in the harbors and the marinas. But this part of France is also one of the most expensive, on par with Paris in the bigger cities. And of course, this is where all the celebrities flock every year for the Cannes Film Festival, which is part of the reason that prices are so high down here. However, on the other side of the coast, so the Côte d'Azur is the eastern southern coast on the Mediterranean. But on the western side, things are much more affordable and accessible for the average person. In the countryside, for example, in regions such as Gascony or Occitanie, two of our favorite regions in the south, thanks to their low cost of living, life isn't going to be as action-packed as in the cities. You'll spend your time casually browsing the fresh fruit and vegetable markets, chatting to the local farmers about their produce, which is a great opportunity to practice your French, of course. You might be, spending your days driving around the countryside, exploring the ruins of old castles or Roman archaeological sites, churches, cathedrals, or maybe you prefer to spend your time gardening or keeping animals on your own land, which is a very real possibility, viable lifestyle choice in these rural regions, or just, simply soaking in the beautiful weather and the tranquil peace and quiet of these rural areas of the country. Living in these regions, you'd either be in the countryside, which would mean a larger home with some land, maybe a pool, or in a village or small town, which means living in a townhouse or maybe a small home, usually with a little garden in the front or in the back. And you're definitely going to know all your neighbors, and they will all know you in these small towns. But the lifestyle options don't end there. There are also all of the mountains and islands that this country has to offer. France is the largest country in Western Europe, and it has such a huge diversity of geography that you can pretty much choose any climate, any lifestyle you want want. So for example, the mountain ranges are playgrounds for adventure seekers with year-round outdoor activities on offer. The Alps are the famous option, of course, but the Pyrenees are actually far cheaper when it comes to skiing and mountain sports. So that's something to look into if you're looking to ski very often. Maybe you set up camp near the Pyrenees. And of course, in summertime, you can also use all of these mountains for hiking, climbing, etc. The country has 11 massive national parks scattered throughout the country. These are wonderlands for hikers, climbers, birders, campers, anything that you want to do in the outdoors. And there are 3 vastly different coastlines. The northern coastline, which is with the English Channel right there, much colder and windier and rainier than the rest of the country. The Atlantic coast, which can be quite windy, but is great for sailing, for example. And the Mediterranean coast, which is the classic warm weather coast that you can enjoy some of those really picturesque cities that you've probably seen in lots of photos of France. Not to mention Corsica and all of the little smaller islands off the coasts. And pretty much any water diversion that you can think to do is going to be available in some part of France. All right, so let's get into some specifics. Paris is where I am based. It's where I live. I've lived here for over 10 years. I've had 2 daughters here. I work here. We have rented an apartment here. We haven't bought in France, but I have quite a vast experience living in Paris specifically. As I mentioned, it's the most international city in France with huge access to the rest of the world. It has a ton of expats, many of them here to work, raise families, and retire as well. So it's very easy to get connected with other English speakers and other expats. It's easy to make friends and join groups here. It's 100% walkable, accessible by public transport, bike, bus, metro, tram. There's no need for a car here. In fact, that would be a huge expense and a liability that you just don't need. And what's really great about Paris is it pretty much just has one hill. So the rest of the city, other than the hill at the very northern tip of the city, is completely flat and very easy if you like to walk or to bike. There are some cobblestone streets, which can be a little bit harder on the knees or the back or the hips, but it's also very easy to spend time in non-cobbled parts of the city. It is a cultural mecca. You know, where else in the world is as famous for its fashion, museums, food? You know, it's rivaled only by New York and some of the other biggest cities in the world. So pretty much anything that you could want to do, any interest you want to pursue is very easily found here. And it's an open air museum, which is great because you get to walk or bike all around. It's another reason that I also prefer the bus over the metro because you get to look out and see the city passing by as you travel. And, you know, it really is beautiful. There's something always new to find. You know, I've been living here for so long and I still find myself discovering a new plaque on a wall saying some famous person lived here, or finding a really cute new little street that I'd never been down before. So even after many, many years, you'll still find some discoveries to be made in exploring Paris by foot or bike. It's also where the jobs and salaries are the salaries are higher and jobs are more readily available, although it's not really going to be an easy or viable option to come here and actually apply for a job. But if you wanted to start your own little business, or if you're a digital nomad, this is a great place to pursue those options. Although, of course, if you're a digital nomad, you can do that from anywhere in the country. Friends and families are not going to have to be convinced to visit here. You know, they'll all be very excited and eager to come spend their vacations with you and visit. And it's a travel hub, not just for going back and forth to North America, but also to the rest of Europe, to Africa, to Asia. It's really one of the best places in the world to base yourself if travel is one of your goals, whether that's just a weekend away, you know, taking the metro or the RER to a castle nearby, or driving to a farm nearby, or getting a plane over to Germany or Italy. So some fantastic options for travel and affordable options using Europe's low-cost airlines. Of course, there are cons. There are the drawbacks of density, which means, you know, low quality of air. There's some air pollution. The high rental prices are one of probably the biggest cost that you're going to run into. The cost of living otherwise is high. Yes, but it can be much cheaper than you'd probably expect. For example, the minimum wage is about 1,600 euros. So people can, you know, live on that much viably. The weather is not great year round. It's beautiful in the summer. It gets very, very hot and sticky in August. And for the rest of the year, for autumn and for winter, it's very gray. There's actually a phrase in French to say it is gray out. Not it's cold out, not it's rainy out. It is gray out. Il fait gris. And it is gray quite often in Paris. We are quite far north, and it can be cold and rainy in the winter. The lifestyle here is very much a working lifestyle. So there's actually another phrase for this that's very specific to Paris, métro, boulot, dodo, which are slang words for you get on the metro, you go to work, and then you go to sleep. And especially if you're living in one of the more commercial districts of the city, you'll really feel that rhythm and that pattern of life. It can be a little bit broody, the mood of the city. You know, it's kind of that same idea of people just in commute, you know, they go to where they're going and they come home. That's not to say Parisians don't enjoy themselves. Of course they do, but you might be surprised at the more go-go attitude of Paris than as compared to the rest of France. It is a difficult place, probably the hardest place to try and make local friends, French friends. It's very difficult here. And that does it for the cons. If you have any other pros or cons about Paris, please tell us in the comments. And in just a minute, I'm going to reveal a couple of our top choices in France that are completely unknown to North Americans. But first, if you're thinking of making a move to France, whether full-time, part-time, as a retiree, entrepreneur, digital nomad, with a family, or as a single, there's no better way to make your France dreams come true than to join us for our one-day France workshop this month. Discover everything you need to know about expat life in all of France's top expat havens when you join us on May 15th for the Live and Invest in France virtual workshop. It's your opportunity to explore all of the options all at once from the comfort of your own home, and your chance to connect with the experts and our team of in-country service providers who can help you make the move with ease and confidence, as well as hearing from expats who have been living here in different parts of the country. So without further ado, I would like to talk to you about Occitanie. It is a wonderful region in the south of France, right on the coastline. It is on the western side of the Mediterranean coast. It's a great travel base. It has 6 airports, great train lines that are high-speed trains, really great cities. This is where Montpellier, Toulouse, Carcassonne, which is a very famous castle place. Lots of great cities, as well as charming villages. Many of them are known as the most beautiful villages in France, which is an actual award given to many towns and villages in France. It's got lots of coastal access, coastal towns, diverse landscapes, as well as the sea and the sand. You've got mountains, wetlands, vineyards, forests. It's got that peaceful countryside, market lifestyle, and a lot of heritage, a lot of history here. So Roman arenas, aqueducts, Cathar castles. The Canal du Midi is a canal that runs through this area, and it's another wonderful asset to have here, especially if you're interested in living on a boat. That's what a lot of people do. I've met several expats who live on houseboats on the canal. There's a very low cost of living here, and it's close to Spain. On the other hand, this is the part of France that has a more depressed economy. There's high unemployment, lower wages, which means it's more affordable, but also means that, you know, it's a place where there is a little bit of, there's a little bit less money going around. It's not as glitzy as the Riviera, which for me is a pro. There are few North Americans here, many Brits, but not as many North Americans. It can be windy in some parts, and it's a very large region, so it's kind of hard to choose your specific town or village. You'd have to spend a lot of time here visiting them all to really find your perfect spot. There's a siesta lifestyle in the south of France that most people don't realize. So many shops or service providers might open in the morning for a few hours, close for several hours over lunch, and then open again at 4 or 5 p.m. and stay open for just another couple of hours. Everything will always be closed on a Sunday, often also on a Saturday. So you have to get used to the hours that the French live in the South. And in this region, you would need a car because unless you're content to stay in your very small town or village, you'd want to be able to get out and explore a little bit more. And Nouvelle, Aquitaine, also mixed with Gascony. Gascony is actually a historic region that doesn't exist anymore on a map, but it exists culturally. So when you're in this part of France, people still call it Gascony, but it overlaps with the current region, which is called Nouvelle Aquitaine. This is one of the most rural parts of the country. Very few people, low population density, no traffic. You'll maybe get stuck behind a tractor or cows. Very peaceful countryside, amazing seaside towns on the Atlantic coast. So La Rochelle is one of my favorites. Ile de Ré is a little island right off that coast. Biarritz is here. These are great sailing cities, and there are tons and tons of villages, just like in Occitanie. Many are the most beautiful villages of France. There are also these really particular kind of style towns called bastides, which were created on a grid system with a market at the center. And you'll find these all across the region. They're the typical way that the towns will be set up and laid out. And it fosters community because those markets are really the heart of these villages. You also have the Bordeaux wine region, which is in this part of the country. And it's very close to Spain and the Pyrenees. This is a very slow pace of life. So if you're looking for that kind of pace of life, this is a great place to look. And as I said, the market lifestyle is really the basis of living here. So on the con side, it is 100% rural in this region. Other than those cities on the coast that I mentioned and Toulouse, which is just on the other side of it, it's a very farming, agricultural kind of culture down here, kind of lifestyle. Again, very low population density, which could be a bad thing. There are practically no North Americans. I know of one couple that lives in this region, and I spoke with many, many expats, and most of them are all British or from Northern Europe. This is also a large region where it would be hard to pinpoint your favorite town or village. The siesta lifestyle exists here as well. And again, you would need a car here. Finally, I will introduce you to Savoie. The Savoie region is the southern half of the eastern side of the country. So borders Switzerland and Italy. So great access to both of those countries here, as well as the Alps. So great mountain lifestyles here, lots of hiking, lots of skiing, gorgeous towns and villages in the heart of the Alpine Mountains, lake villages. Annecy is one of my favorites in this region. There's clean air, lots of it. It's, again, close to the borders of other countries, so it's easy to just drive into Italy or Switzerland for the day. This side of France has a more Germanic style of culture, so the foods here are much heartier. You know, you'll find sausages, lots of really hearty, stomach-filling meals here to keep you warm in the winter. And it's just a 4 to 5 hour drive to the Mediterranean coast. So you're still not that far from the Mediterranean here. The big cities, Lyon, Geneva is close by. And this is a much older population than you'll see in some other parts of the country. So it's very quiet, reserved, very traditional. This could be a con or a pro, depending on what you're looking for. Life might even become a little bit isolated, especially in the winter. If you're in a mountain town, you know, the roads might become less accessible. And there are fewer conveniences here. There's not going to be as much of an international culture here, aside from the influences of Switzerland or Italy right along that coast, that borderline. You'll get serious cold here. So if you're looking for winter, this is the place to go. You'll get some snow and some ice, and it will be a very picturesque place to spend the winter. As I mentioned, it can be a little bit isolated with little access in winter if you're in a really small town or high up in the mountains. There are no universities here, not much nightlife. So if you're looking for a more active or younger population, this might not be the part of the country for you. The siesta lifestyle definitely exists here as well, and you would need a car and snow tires and all of those things that go with snow when you have a vehicle. All right, those are my top regions in France. What are your thoughts? Do you know any of these? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget that if you're interested in living in France, you should definitely join us on May 15th for our Live and Invest in France virtual workshop. Click on the screen to learn more. And don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos like this every week from Live and Invest Overseas. Happy trails!